It's a deadly game that we play as we live our lives. When we say what's on our minds, play it now before the game is over. What is everybody? This is Daniel Ride 08 back in our video. 1998 year in review continues with WWF Survivor Series, The Deadly Games. This is a very difficult show to review. The matches are very, very short, but the story going on that plays throughout the entire show is fucking awesome. And I am going to review this show by my personal enjoyment, by my personal preferences, not by match quality, but by how the storyline and everything that falls into place on this show. Everything just seemed to work perfectly well on this show. This show doesn't seem long and boring and drawn out like WrestleMania 4, where they had the WWF Championship tournament going on. That show, which was 4 hours with 16 matches, was long, drawn out, boring, convoluted, and just not a whole lot of shit. It also had boring, piss poor matches, and that had no place in belonging. I mean, Warrior versus Hercules, Dino Bravo in the tournament, what the fuck's that? So on and so forth. This, however, while it does have 14 matches in 3 hours, the matches, they're very short, yet every single thing that takes place during this match, during this show, has a big, major purpose. It's a very fun show. And just like all pay-per-views that is based around a tournament, I always do the non-tournament matches first. Whether it's WrestleMania 4 or Spring Stampede 2000, doesn't matter. So we start off this review with Sable defeating Jacqueline to win the Women's Championship. Sable is the top woman in the women's division. If you want to call it a women's division, sure. I just think that it wasn't really much of a women's division. This is a far cry from what we see now. I mean, women would win the women's championship in fucking mud bath matches, for God's sakes, and bra and panties matches, and so on and so forth. But Sable, she's a top woman. She has her issue of Playboy that's on the horizon at this time period. She is the women's champion now after this show. 2.5, bad match. Of course it was, but Sable is the women's champion here. She wins the title. The New Age Outlaws defeat the Nation members, D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry. They're no longer, the Nation Domination's dead in all kinds of purposes, but D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry, they are still the Nation, and they also take on the Headbangers. This is a bad match as well. 2.5 out of 10. New Age Outlaws on top still of the tag team division. Interesting time period between the tag team division. This is before Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys would come in. So we still have to deal with, the Headbangers and the Nation members and other horrible factions like the DOA, LOD 2000, and Los Boricuas, and whatever. Next, we start off the show. Let's dive into the Deadly Game Tournament. This is the meat, the potatoes. This is everything that's good about this show. Now, this show is very hard to review because while match quality, most of the matches are less than 5 minutes. Of course there is. There's 14 matches in 3 hours. How do you expect to have each match be 10 minutes at least? No, each match has to be at least 4 minutes, and you also have to have some people skipping, rounds. So how are they going to do this? How am I going to review this? Well, I'm reviewing this on my own personal enjoyment. This is a fantastic tournament. It's not boring. It's not convoluted. It's not so boring you fall asleep like WrestleMania 4's tournament. It's not so fucking over the top with so many disqualifications and so many stupid things like Spring Stampede 2000 tournaments. This is very straightforward. There's a lot of twists. There's a lot of turns, but you can follow with it. There's a lot of swerves, but everything has major purpose to a major purpose. So, let's go. Mankind defeats his mystery opponent, the man who will become Gilbert Dwayne Gill, in about 60 seconds. Can't really rate it. We get to see Gilbert before he was Gilbert, though. Mankind has a suit and tie. He looks adorable. Next, Al Snow defeats Jeff Jarrett in a decent match. Fuck Jeff Jarrett, though. 4 out of 10. Stone Cold Steve Austin defeats the Big Boost Man via disqualification. Now we have our very first talking point in the Deadly Games tournament. Now, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Boss Man. This is a fine match, 4 out of 10. But about 4 minutes into the match, Big Boss Man takes out his nightstick and beats the shit out of Stone Cold Steve Austin. This leads Stone Cold to be rushed on a stretcher and carried out. Why did Boss Man do this? Well, because, of course, he is working for Vince McMahon. He is with the corporation, of course. So he gave up his spot, not a dog spot, but his championship title spot, so that way Stone Cold Steve Austin cannot no longer compete. However, Vince McMahon's plan of keeping Stone Cold Steve Austin out of the tournament entirely backfires during this next match. X-Pac and he's a man, such a man. He's a real man's man. It's a real man's man, William Regal. Both these guys go to a double countout. This is a fine match, 5 out of 10. They go to a double countout, and it's kind of weird. Vince McMahon's plan has backfired because Steve Austin was supposed to face the winner of this match, and since both men are double counted out, and since in that ruling, nobody continues. Only winners continue. So if a match ends in a double disqualification or a double countout in this case, or a time limit draw, nobody continues. So Stone Cold Steve Austin gets a bye. Vince McMahon tries to tell Sergeant Slaughter to run back and stop and restart the match. They try to restart the match. They do a little count out stuff. William Regal gets in time, but they just wave it off entirely, and then both guys have to run back like a bunch of jabronis. Kind of a weird moment. It's just basically a big fuck up when you have a tournament that has to take place within 3 hours, and 14 matches in 3 hours is quite a lot. You're going to have some major fuck ups. And this was kind of a major fuck up. It looked weird. Sergeant Slaughter running out there, trying to restart the match. They do restart the match, but then the match is waved off. William Regal has his hand raised, and then he has to, oh, wait, fuck. And then he jogs back like a jabroni, and then the next match immediately takes place. Like, William Regal is jogging to the back, and before he even reaches the stage, out comes Ken Shamrock. So we immediately go right into the next match. And that's Ken Shamrock and Goldust in a decent match. 5 out of 10. Ken Shamrock picks up the victory and is moving on to the second round of the Deadly Game tournament. Now, Triple H and The Rock was supposed to take place, and had it taken place on this show, it would have been a 5-star match. Of course it would, because their matches are always fucking awesome. See the ladder match, see the last man, see the Iron Man match, see their Backlash match, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, Triple H was injured, and he had to vacate his Intercontinental Championship. So, in his spot, Boss Man takes his spot. He takes Triple H's spot this time. And now we have Big Boss Man taking on The Rock. And it's a blink and you missed it. So you hear Boss Man's music. The Rock's already in the ring. You hear Boss Man's music. And he rushes into the ring. He gets trapped into an inside cradle. 1, 2, 3. It's over in record time. It's the fastest match in the history of the WWF. And The Rock defeats the Big Boss Man in record time. 4 seconds. And this is fucking awesome. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Why? Boss Man comes out to his awesome theme. He rushes in. The Rock's in no time, he inside cradle, 1, 2, 3, over in 4.5 seconds. Whatever. Spectacular stuff. And The Rock moves on in the Deadly Games tournament. Big Boss Man, by the way, is everywhere on this show. He's on this show like 10 or 15, 25, 5,000 times. Anyways, Rock moves on, and that's the end of the first round. Mankind, Al Snow, Steve Austin gets a bye, moving to the third round. X-Pac and Regal got a double count out. No one advanced there. Shamrock advances, and The Rock advances. So that's your second round. Mankind, Al Snow, Shamrock, The Rock, and then the next match here, Undertaker and Kane. Both Undertaker and Kane got a bye because of the events of what happened at Breakdown, since they both chokeslammed Steve Austin. They vacated the title. No person was awarded the title at Judgment Day, so Vince awarded both men the bye. Now, Paul Bearer came back at Judgment Day, betrayed Kane, and was now managing The Undertaker here. Undertaker and Kane, like I said, with their feud, with their awesome rivalry that has spanned for so long, and they have taken on each other in so many different forms, their matches are largely awful after the Inferno. The WrestleMania 14 match was amazing. Their Inferno match, from a spectacular standpoint, was, well, spectacular. But their Judgment Day match was atrocious. Their Survivor Series match here, it's not much better. Undertaker gets the win, as he, per usual, always beat Kane. He moves on to the third round, 4 out of 10. Next up, we have Mankind and Al Snow. This is a fine match, 5 out of 10. Mankind, he is positioning himself. Vince McMahon is pretending to like him. And Mankind is under the impression that Vince wants him to be the corporate champion. He was awarded the brand new Hardcore Championship at this point in time. And Mankind is just taking it all hook, line, and sinker. Poor Mick Foley. 5 out of 10. And he moves on to the semifinals. Next up, The Rock defeats Ken Shamrock. And we have another big, major talking point about this tournament. The Big Boss Man comes on down during this match. And The Rock brings down his former glory days of being a Miami Hurricane. And he became his own Hurricane self. Big Boss Man has the nightstick on the outside. He tosses the nightstick to Ken Shamrock. And The Rock pulls his old Miami Hurricane self out and catches the nightstick. It's an interception. It's an interception. By golly, what an interception. Hits Ken Shamrock in the face with the nightstick, and he gets the victory. Again, The Rock and Ken Shamrock had one of the most underrated rivalries of all time, and this is just one of their finest matches. Their Royal Rumble match is good. Their King of the Ring match is still the best, but this match was very good. I love the interception. I love this match. 7 out of 10. Very good. And The Rock will move on to the semifinals. So now we have our semifinals. It's Mankind taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin, who got a bye from X-Pac and Regal. And then The Rock and Undertaker, who also had a bye from the first round. That's our semifinals. So Mick Foley, Mankind, takes on Stone Cold Steve Austin in a very good match. The best match on this card. This is a very good match. Of course, they were going to have a good match. These two guys just got done having a very good set of matches in Unforgiven and Over the Edge. Very good matches, and this is just another good match. Mankind. Again, he is positioned, or at least in his mind, to be the corporate champion. Now, Shane McMahon on an episode of Raw. This is the Raw after Judgment Day. Stone Cold Steve Austin has a gun. Austin's got a gun. And he's threatening to shoot Vince McMahon. He takes the gun and points it at Vince McMahon, and he shoots him. Except it's a toy, and it says Bang 316. And he then says, McMahon 316 said I just pissed my pants. He hands him a letter, though. He hands him a letter, and that letter basically states that he is reinstated for 5 years. How did this become? Because Shane McMahon allowed Stone Cold Steve Austin to be brought back in the WWF for 5 years. Now, what's interesting is if this is real, if this is for real, then Stone Cold Steve Austin walked out legitimately when he walked out legitimately in 2002. He was still under this 5-year contract. That's insanity if you really want to get into that. Very much insanity when you step back and think about it. This is also how we get introduced, at least on a very public television role, of Shane O'Mac. Here comes the money. Here comes the money. Money, 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 money. Anyways, this is a fun match. Now here comes the finish. Stone Cold Steve Austin hits the stunner on basically everybody. He hits a stunner on Boss Man, who's back out there again. He's everywhere on this show. Vince McMahon, he is not really in a wheelchair. He is in a wheelchair, but he's not really hurt, of course. Of course he's not. He hits stunners everywhere. He hits a stunner on Mick Foley and gets a pinfall. However, he gets the pin. Out comes Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon counts 2. But right before he counts to 3, he stops himself, looks at Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he flips him off. He gives him the double middle finger as if to tell him, you are indeed number 11. Or number 1. I'm not real sure. But I digress. Well, I just don't want to work. Whatever. Mankind gets the victory in the end, and this is a good match. 7.5 out of 10, and Stone Cold Steve Austin got screwed out of the WWF Championship. Like Vince McMahon says, he who laughs last, laughs best. Ha-ha! So Mick Foley, Mankind, will then go to the finals of the Deadly Games tournament, and he will challenge for the WWF Championship between The Rock and The Undertaker. The Rock and Undertaker. The Rock defeats The Undertaker via disqualification in an okay match. I give it a 6 out of 10. The Undertaker didn't really have a whole lot of good matches. His match with Kane was pretty lackluster. And his match with The Rock also could have been really good, but it could have been a lot better. Kane comes on down, and he beats the shit out of The Undertaker, and he beats the shit out of The Rock. And then The Rock gets the victory via disqualification. Whatever. That leads us to this, the main event. A 6 out of 10, by the way. The main event. It's The Rock. It's Mankind. And this is not a great match by any stretch of the imagination, but still a fine match. But this is where Vince McMahon's master plan, how he talked about the master plan at Judgment Day. Now, this is really his master plan. After having the Boss Man take himself out to get disqualified and purposely attack Stone Cold Steve Austin to injure him during this tournament, it backfired because X-Pac and Regal got counted out. But then, Shane McMahon, he betrays Stone Cold, gives him the double middle finger. And now, all that's left is for Mankind, his corporate chosen one, to become the corporate champion. But Vince McMahon was playing Mankind all along. Ha ha ha. This is where his master plan all comes to fruition. Vince McMahon is out there. The Rock has a sharpshooter on Mankind. And we all know what's going on here. A year ago prior, it was the infamous Montreal screw job. Well, my God, how everything likes to be played out. How many times have they played Montreal over and over and over and over again? Well, this is the very first, at least I can tell, by the revisiting Montreal screw job spot. Vince McMahon is out there. He rings the bell. He tells the bellkeeper, ring the motherfucking bell in the midst of the sharpshooter. And The Rock wins the Deadly Games tournament and becomes the new World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion. He is the corporate champion. The Rock then hits a rock bottom on a bewildered, confused Mankind. But then Stone Cold Steve Austin, he ain't going to have any of it. He gives a stunner to The Rock, many stunners actually, and he will close this show. This is an okay match, not good. Actually, it's not as good, rather, as their Last Man Standing match, their I Quit match, the ladder match, their Empty Arena match, their Rock and Sock Connection stuff. It's not nearly as good as that stuff, but still a adequate match. A 6 out of 10. Overall, while it looks like as a match quality standpoint, most of these matches are very, very bad. Or just very, very quick. They're about 4 minutes each. So you think I would give this a very poor rating. Sure, Rock and Mankind was okay. Rock and Undertaker were okay. But your gems in Rock, Shamrock, very good. Of course, Steve Austin and Mankind was amazing. However, the Vince McMahon master plan, as planned, really all came in. It's like an artist. It's like an artist. Vince McMahon was just painting and painting this masterpiece. And his masterpiece came together on this show. This show, all their storylines, all played out perfected. All to perfection. Vince McMahon, he who laughs last, laughs best. So, I am reviewing this show by personal enjoyment, by the matches, by story, by all that. A 6.5. And when you count into fruition of all the matches that took place, I think it's a very fair review. It's a very hard show to review because you got to take place in the matches, the storylines, and your personal preferences and all that junk. And that's it. 6.5 out of 10. And that's Survivor Series 1998. One of the best Survivor Series of all time. And honestly, tournament-based pay-per-views like WrestleMania 4, they're very, very bad. But Survivor Series 1998 is the exceptional good pay-per-view tournament. This is Daniel Rock. I am Daniel Rock 08, and the WWF 1998 pay-per-view overall rating gets a 6 out of 10. Your highlights included WrestleMania 14, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, King of the Ring, all very good. Your big five did really, really well. However, other pay-per-views like Breakdown and Judgment Day, and while they had some good stuff in them, Unforgiven was and a couple other Over the Edge was even though you had good stuff. Overall, 6 out of 10 for all the pay-per-views. And I finish out 1998 with WCW's World War III. Goodbye.